Dad, I know you got your wings, and St. Peter let you in the gate, so if I've ever needed a wingman, it would be now. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. Mark Twain. Have you ever heard of Ryan Ferguson? He was convicted, spent 10 years in prison for something he didn't do, based solely on false eyewitness testimony. And same as Kevin Green, 16 years, all based on false eyewitness testimony. Let's talk about perception and assumption. First of all, I'm not Neil Peart. As far as I know, I'm not related to him. And despite all the things being said, because of my haircut for one thing, I'm not a Nazi sympathizer or any of that. Neither was my father, grandfather, or great-grandfather, despite what you've been, told. So they used to have lots of hair. And the reason why I cut my hair was I was in the grocery store one day, saw this guy with a looked like George Costanza or Friar Tuck with a ponytail, and I decided right then that was not going to be me. And so I eventually cut my hair. It was a lot easier to take care of. That's it. It's the only reason. That's my cousin Ed right there. It's cousin Ed. Haven't seen him since Christmas. So do you watch Scandal? Where it was the last season, at some point where Jake was set up by Olivia's father for killing Fitz's son. See, people in a position of power, they can do whatever they want, get away with it, not even be questioned. So it's like, remember, it's like he was getting the crap beat out of him by Fitz. Just think, he was killed and never had a chance to get his story out there. I mean, that's why, in corporate America, they get away with stuff all the time. Whether it's killing someone in your family with a faulty ignition switch or exploding airbag, and they just get a slap on the wrist, have to pay a fine, and you still have to bury somebody. And, it sounds fair to me. Just like in the workplace, it's always assumed that your leads, supervisors, managers are people of exceptional character and integrity, but we find out far too often that's not always the case. They could even do something like, have an employee keep calling you after you leave somewhere, record your conversations, and use them as they see fit. And due to the lack of ethics in corporate America, that's what happened to me. And I used to work at this Oakwood production plant for about 2.5 years, where there was a racist crime that was committed. I worked with several races, self-proclaimed racists, 3 of them, and rednecks, so they used to always say. And while I was there, racist crime was committed by a person or persons that still are employed there. And because of the nature of the crime and my German heritage, I was made the scapegoat. And I did not write any racial slurs on anything, nor did I call another employee the N-word. I did hear it every night pretty much while I was there. Anyway, it's like some of these conversations, this guy that kept calling me employee number 8. And I told him, I didn't do that. But this is what I heard. Told him all the stuff from what I heard while I worked there. And these are some of the highlights. And some of the first things that made me realize I was working at a place that had a little different environment was on 2 separate occasions, employees number 9 and number 10 referred to our African American or black, I don't know the term to use, as a gorilla, monkey, ape, whatever. And this was in the shipping office, so there were other witnesses to that. And let's see, then employee number 2 was always trying to give out another employee's number that worked there that had some sort of racist message on his answering machine. And so I just think it's like they could have given this number to them and said it was somebody in my family, and it wouldn't even be questioned. They could have said it was my uncle, my brother, anybody. It wouldn't even be questioned because who they are. And because when we first found out about this at night, it's like employee number 1, 2, and 3 and me were up in the second floor break room, and employee number 3 asked, it's like, do you think we're going to have to take a lie detector test? And employee number 2 said, it's like, oh, I'm not worried about that. It's like, I know how to beat a lie detector test, or at least make it come up inconclusive. One night I was signing out my safety checklist for my forklift, and I was approached by employee number 2, and he asked me if I was a racist. I just kind of, laughed at him. It caught me off guard, and I said no. He asked, do you watch South Park? I said no. And then he told me about something that was on the show that had something to do with the N-word. Imagine that. The Friday morning after the 2008 election, when President Obama was elected, employee number 1 walked up to me there at the end of the night. It was Friday morning. And so we had Friday night and Saturday night were our nights off. And he said, oh, we're going to have to work all weekend, Saturday and Friday night, Saturday night. And I asked him why. He said, well, the White House called and they ordered 20,000 gallons of black paint. This is all the things, since they heard this stuff on these recorded conversations, as soon as they got the chance to say something, when they were given carte blanche to just say whatever without it being refuted or anything. I even got blamed for employee number 3's. He did this little thing. It was like a woo, and kind of like the guy that's said he's going to get him, the football player, going to get him some cold cuts. It's kind of like that, and he would just do it randomly. And one night I asked him, I said, since they always were talking about being rednecks and stuff, so I was like, what is that, your redneck mating call? And after my first year as part-time employee, I used up all my hours, and I had the last 6 weeks of the year off. And when I came back and noticed our supervisor wasn't there, I figured he was on vacation. And then during the next couple weeks, after I returned, employee 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all at some point made the comment where it's like they're the airbags that we used to put in the trailers to separate the pallets. They had a silverback gorilla on them, the airbags and the boxes. And they pointed, they said, you know where supervisor so-and-so is? And I said, no. And then they point to the airbag or the box and say, well, he got a new modeling job. And employee number 5, it's like towards the end there, about the last year I was there, employee number 5, we just got 2 new guys on our shift. They're black. And he used to refer to the one as undercover brother. And if you were like walking towards him, and I'm not going to say I'll just call him undercover brother, if he was like in front of you, as soon as he passed, employee number 5 would give it the, if you ever seen the movie, one night during, again, used to stay up there after everybody was done eating. Most people would go outside or downstairs. And it was usually me, employee 1, 2, and 3, up in the second floor break room. And I was talking, they were showing a replay on the sports. And they had, were showing the Thrashers, back when we had the Thrashers. It was 2008 or 9. And Evander Kane was one of their new prospects, really good. He was black. And I was telling him, it's like, yeah, this guy, he's from Ontario. His mother named him after Vander Holyfield, blah, blah, blah. His father used to play. And employee number two turned to me and said, you mean they have N-words in Canada too? And so I'd like to ask HR, is it my job to, should I just say, it's like, no, young man, I think you meant to say African Canadian. It's not my job. Let's see, employee number 9, 2 separate weeks, I gave him a ride to and from work because he didn't have a vehicle. His girlfriend had it. And so both different weeks, at some point, he brought up the fact that everything wrong with the world is because of the Jews. Let's see. Employee number 2, he had to take something, care of something every night. He had to do, can't say what it is, I'm sure. Don't be held liable, but he had to do something several times a night. So park his lift right there in front of the shipping office where I used to work, loading trailers. And anytime if there was a black employee driving by, dropping off a pallet, walking by, just within sight, he would, just walk by and say the N-word under his breath. Let's see. Employee number 1, he was talking one night, started telling a story that he took his wife dancing downtown for their anniversary or maybe her birthday, I forget which. Went to this restaurant that had dance floor, and I thought it was going to be a funny story at first, to where, he doesn't look like much of a dancer, but anyway, it's like, yeah, we went there and this and that, and it's like, man, it's like it was nothing but a bunch of N-words. Man, I can't stand them. And I just looked at him and he paused, and then he said, yeah, I'm racist, but my father's worse. My mother doesn't like to go out with him in public because if he comes across a mixed race couple or something like that, he's going to say something. And also things like this. Also, it's like if they use this part of the recording, if you edit out that first part, it sounds like I'm speaking about my father. And when I'm just quoting employee number 1, 2, or 3, or whoever. And then there was, watching the replay of the news on Martin Luther King Day. Don't remember which year it was. They were showing the day's events, replaying it. And employee number 3 turned to me and said, my father said they should dig him up and shoot him again to make sure he's dead. And one night, while standing in the shipping lanes, employee number 4 asked if I noticed the letters PO and MLK on the shipping lane signs, because it's got the alphabets and numbers and all that. I said, do you know what that stands for? No, what? He said, piss on Martin Luther King. He was also the one that, after he saw Gran Torino, that was his week, or however long, of Asian slurs. And he's also the one that used to ask me questions like, why do they always call each other cuz? It's like, why don't you ask a brother? Now, okay, let's see. Missing a page, there it is. And then I had a neighbor. She was a beautiful black woman. We'll just call her Miss Brown Sugar Goodness. It's like one day she came over and borrowed a can opener, and like neighbors, we became friends, started hanging out or whatever. And one night at break, I told employee number 6 and number 7, it's like how great she was, this and that. And they told me the only good N-word is a dead N-word. And one night we used to watch the ABC News at 3 or whatever sometimes. They had some Venita somebody had some full lips that employee number 3 was just, he's got a thing about full lips. He used to go on and on about them. And my neighbor, who I'll refer to as my army buddy or whatever, she had some nice full lips. And I asked him one night, I said, why don't you find yourself a nice black woman? And he said, ugh. It's like, I'd never go that far. I tell you right now, it's like, I'm a racist. They're nasty. And when I told employee number 1, 2, and 3, I was talking about her, because I think we had gone, went somewhere, I forget where. And she's just really cool. And I told her, it's like, she's like the perfect woman. And if I was younger, it's like I would have already asked her to marry me. And that's when employee number 3 said, well, we can't talk to him anymore. He's gone over to the enemy side. And then employee number 2 called me an N-word lover. So it's like, yeah, I do. I like beautiful black women too. And I mean, I've lived in and around the city probably most of my adult life. And as far as I can tell, it's the U.S. capital of beautiful black women. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, if you visit, it's like all you have to do is turn on the local newscast and just whatever channel. I mean, you got Jovita, Aaron, Erica, Sine, Markina, Tracy. I mean, just pick a channel. Those are just my favorites. I can't include everyone. And or Tyler Perry, since he's got his studios here, and the women that he uses in his movies or TV shows like Denise Boutet or Essence Atkins, Keisha Sharp. I mean, just pick a show. On House of Pain, who's the one that plays Janine? I don't watch that one much, but I never saw her name in the credits. I don't know who she is, but yeah, that's always a good sample right there. And so there's also, let's see, another thing that I'm being accused of is, oh, and before I forget, in case you're related to me and your employer doesn't know yet, don't let them know you know me, because you'll be their next target. But another thing I'm being accused of, it's like they had a um, anniversary a few years ago about one of those office shootings, workplace shootings, or whatever. And so, since they can say whatever they want and not even be questioned, so I got accused of that, and I did not threaten anybody, threaten to shoot anybody, anything like that. Because these are the only guns I've ever owned. Probably ever will. So I mean that's what I'm up against. And the other thing, it's like my army buddy I was talking about. She went active, and the goodbye I got from her, I knew I'd never hear or see from her again. And so when I got an email with her name on it, I thought, at first I thought, well, maybe something happened, because I mean she had my email address. So I read it, and that would have not been the first email she sent me. So I mean right there it was like, okay. And I had to think, it's like a guy at work his wife did a resume for me, and he had my email address. So I was like, okay. So anyway, didn't reply at first, but then it's like, okay, let's see what goes on. So anyway, point being, and I played along as they did, which I forget when the last one was, but it's on my computer somewhere. But so point being, they could create an email in my name and it wouldn't be questioned. Just like they probably have something, could be something up on a invite only web page, Facebook or whatever. I don't know how to do that stuff. So I mean, that's what I'm up against, and um, so I've talked to pretty much everyone I thought I could, but I mean, employers, ex-employers, nobody at Department of Labor, Commissioner's office. Even I've called 2 local TV stations, but then I thought the reason why they didn't want to have anything to do with it, who owns the TV stations? Corporate America. That's right. So that's what I'm up against. If you can help me clear my father's name, my name, that'd be great. If not, thanks for listening.